Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the December 16th, 2015 edition of the Midweek Update here on Rasslin with Redbeard. As you may know, Star Wars The Force Awakens is out this Friday. If you're not looking forward to that, I'm sorry, but we can no longer be friends. Number 5 story of the week is an update regarding the TNA World Title Series. This is something we haven't talked about in a while because, quite frankly, it's been kind of in the can for a while. People have known where this is going, and it's only here recently becoming somewhat interesting because of the fact that we don't really know what's going to happen now that they're in the semifinal round. This was originally supposed to have been a tournament that concluded with Bobby Lashley being the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. There's a belief that that's no longer going to be the case, or at least that the match that was going to have him declared the champion is going to be redone entirely because of the fact that the final 2 episodes of Impact that are set to air on Destination America have been pushed to an 11 p.m. time slot. They evidently have made some decisions to kind of change things up with Destination America, wrapping up their deal with TNA. This is not uncommon. It kind of happens from time to time with a show that's on its way out. But at the same time here, it's a little bit difficult from the standpoint of a fan of TNA, if there's such a thing, to keep up with this type of material because of the fact that it's being pushed around. And people are having to wait and see what happens with this thing now because when you're transitioning from one network to another, it's just kind of weird, to be honest. The whole shooting match is. But we're waiting to see what happens. The semifinal and final rounds will be on Pop TV. The first 2 weeks, evidently, of the show are going to have those matches. We're going to have 2 semifinal matches in the form of Eric Young versus Matt Hardy. And then also Bobby Lashley will be taking on Ethan Carter III in the other semifinal match, and then whoever wins those 2 matches will be in the final. I would be shocked if it does not wind up being Ethan Carter and Matt Hardy. That's my prediction for the 2 final participants there. I just think that Ethan Carter is the one who has the most upside to of anyone in TNA right now, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if it is Bobby Lashley. He's one of those guys who's been dedicated to them for a long while now. There's been talk of Ethan Carter possibly going back to WWE, but who knows? Talk is just talk these days when it comes to things you read online. But even so, this is going to be an interesting series of events as they transition from the deal with Destination America to Pop TV, and whether or not the product becomes something new, or if it sort of stays the same and they just begin regurgitating what they've been doing previously. I hope this is a fresh slate for TNA, and they can do something with Impact that's interesting and fresh and new, but we'll have to see. And that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks as they begin their new experience with Pop TV and leaving Destination America to become some type of a paranormal network. Yeah, not sure what's going on there, but that's what they're going for. Number 4 story of the week is that fans were seen leaving early from Raw. This is a story that got some legs because of the fact that it seemed like it was an affirmation of people's thoughts that Raw's going down into the tank. It's down the tubes in some people's minds. But I have to say that this would only be appropriate to have happened in North Charleston, South Carolina. It's one of those things that reminds you of the story here that came out a while back, how WWE apparently classifies towns in terms of letter grades being A, B, C, and whatnot, and that Charleston was on the lower end of that spectrum. This would only seem to confirm those expectations, but at the same time, it was a moment in the show where they had already, the live audience had seen what they were going to see. There was nothing else that really was going to happen with that show that would have been all that exciting in terms of star power or whatnot. And they were ready to go home. They've been there for 3+ hours watching Raw and having to deal with all the commercial breaks and everything else. That's one of the problems that I've always had with a broadcast like that or any type of TV taping, is that there's so many things built into the experience that kind of bogs it down and makes it seem like this trudging, slow thing. It's not like a pay-per-view or a live event where it's just continuous. These things, you might have a 10 or 20 minute delay in there where you're not doing anything and nothing's going on. So, be that as it may, the wrestling media made a big deal out of this. I just thought it was funny that it happened here in South Carolina, but at the same time, it's not surprising. I mean, I've left shows early before as well. When you're talking about a town like Charleston that's as busy as it is, that parking lot around the North Charleston Coliseum is not all that easy to get around in when it's full of 8,000-10,000 people or how many ever were there that night. So I can understand it, and I really don't see why that was a big deal, but we wanted to address it here just because of the fact that it was a local story seemingly, and one of those things that got picked up and was talked about a lot. So don't always read in between the lines or make a big deal out of a molehill please national media. It's just not worth it. Number 3 story of the week is that Ring of Honor and PWG have announced a partnership. This is something that people have kind of been expecting here for a while, but to have them publicly acknowledge that they're working together, at least in a sense that they can share talent, it's kind of a big deal. This is something that some folks online were kind of reading some things into that doesn't really actually pertain to. People were thinking this is going to be some type of an alliance to where you're going to see PWG working with Ring of Honor and vice versa, in the sense that they'll come in and have PWG style matches or matches that are denoted as being PWG matches with Ring of Honor. That's not what this is about at all. This is just them saying, in the future, guys like Roderick Strong or the Young Bucks or whoever who are exclusive to Ring of Honor can't continue to work with PWG because of the fact that both companies can really benefit from one another, and because of the fact that they really had to. PWG is a long-standing company, of course, on the West Coast. Their equivalent in the East Coast is more or less Ring of Honor. They're very similar companies in a lot of ways in that they kind of dominate the indie scene on both coasts. But in that regard, it was important for them to publicly put this out there because people were going to continue to kind of have things set under the radar that, we think that they're working together, but we're not sure. This puts all that to bed, but it also gives them a good bit of press as well, gets the name out there. So it's a nice thing to have out there, in my opinion. But it is what it is, though. It's not something that is going to bring any type of new frontiers to any type of wrestling that we haven't seen already. This is just making a public allowance for guys like the ones we mentioned to be involved in both promotions. So it's good news all the way around. You would like to see that this would be a situation that more promotions could benefit from, but I still think that independent wrestling is what it is, and as a company like Ring of Honor continues to grow, I would not expect them to be signing agreements like this with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes along. So enjoy it while you can, PWG. Take the most of it that you can, and move on. Number 2 story of the week is, could Daniel Bryan's WWE career be over? This is something that's gotten a lot of discussion online here recently. This is a story that a lot of people have followed because, of course, Daniel Bryan is the beloved character that he is. It's an unfortunate situation that he finds himself in because the injuries that he's sustained are probably not that much more worse than anything that an NFL player like, for example, Ben Roethlisberger has experienced over his career. But because of the timing of his injuries, because of the fact that he's being, I hate to say it, but he's being lumped in with a lot of guys who are bringing about class action lawsuits and whatnot against WWE, saying, we didn't realize that we were going to be whatever later on in our careers because of the fact that they were telling us to go jump off of whatever and land on our heads. They're kind of silly lawsuits, but at the same time, WWE's trying to protect themselves is what it amounts to. So you have to understand it from their perspective, but at the same time, you have to be frustrated from the perspective of somebody like Daniel Bryan, because he knows he can still compete. He knows he can still be in the ring. There may be some changes that are required for his style, because he's been one of those types that's just a balls to the wall, action-packed style guy who doesn't hold back. He goes 100 miles an hour in every direction. But at the same time, it may be something to where he has to dial it back somewhat. Or if he's not going to be able to compete in WWE ever again, it might be time for him to either hang him up or to go back to the independents and see what he can do there. He would be welcomed, of course, with open arms to any company that could afford him at this point in time. But still, I think that this is a situation to where he's going to have to really look at what the future of his life is going to be holding, whether it's in the ring, whether it's at home with his wife and potential family. You have to think about quality of life. Somebody like him, AJ Styles, a lot of the other guys who've had significant injuries, they always should have to be reminded that you're not always going to be a wrestler. You've got to think about those 20, 30 years that you're going to be outside of the ring. What are those going to be like? You're going to be walking around like Mick Foley, or are you going to be standing up tall like Ric Flair? So there is a difference, and hopefully he's got somebody putting that in his ear, because it's one thing to have him out there competing. Be a lot more better to have him with a nice long life, though. And the number one story of the week is our reaction to the WWE TLC pay-per-view. To be totally honest with you, this was a very fun pay-per-view. Had an enjoyable time watching this thing. There were a lot of train wreck spots that involved a lot of debris, as we've seen some people refer to it. But at the same time, there was not a whole lot of logic employed in this. For example, the Selena Del Sol that Kalisto hit from the top of the ladder on one of the Usos. When he was mid-flip, he could have just as well reached up and grabbed those belts or whatnot. But, of course, he comes down to complete that move. And then you have all the various dives and whatnot that are done on the outside of that match. Here again, it's fun to watch. It's great from the standpoint of this is a style of match you don't see very frequently from WWE anymore. So to have three teams go out there and give it their all like that was great. But at the same time, it was like there's really no point to any of this. That was especially true in the chairs match. A couple of weeks ago, for example, you had Paige doing her submission maneuver on top of the announce table, and that was supposed to in some way make it worse. Well, during the Del Rio and Jack Swagger match, you had Jack Swagger providing or doing the ankle lock on Del Rio, and that supposedly was supposed to be more painful because he had a chair in his arm. Didn't do anything. So, here again, I'm nitpicking, but there's just things like that that deserve to be pointed out, in my opinion. On the whole, though, very entertaining show. The whole scenario there at the end with Roman Reigns beating down Triple H, and Sheamus was kind of weird, kind of acknowledging that he's frustrated as a character. It's also kind of weird in that you look at him and it's like, okay, well, you're supposed to be the hero, and you're beating the you-know-what out of these two guys. Kind of hard to sell my kid on liking you at that point in time. I don't buy that. But since then, of course, Monday Night Raw has happened, and we know now that Roman Reigns is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He had another match on Monday Night Raw. It seems like a lot of stops and starts and a lot of trying different things with Roman Reigns to get people to like him. They didn't do too well with the Daniel Bryan approach, so now they tried that approach that's very similar to something that they did with The Rock here a while back, back during the Attitude Era, oddly enough. We'll see where it goes. Creatively, they're kind of all over the place with what they are wanting to do with him. Seen a lot of discussion about the potential for WrestleMania, because they're not that far away realistically. They got the Royal Rumble as the next big thing between here and there. Interesting concept to me would be, and this is me playing armchair booker, would be for the main events to wind up being Cena versus Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Brock Lesnar somewhere involved in there. But I don't know how it would all work out. My idea there would be for Cena to come back from his little break here to suddenly, say, okay, we're buddy-buddy with Roman Reigns, and then suddenly have this thing happen where he's a heel, oddly enough, and align himself with the Authority. I just think that would be a very interesting turn of events. That way, if Hunter, because there's rumors that Hunter's hurt in some way, shape, or form. He may or may not be, but if he is and he can't go, who else from the Authority is going to challenge him in terms of having a match at WrestleMania? The him being Roman Reigns. Who knows? But it just seems like an interesting possibility. We'll have to wait and see what happens there, but at any rate, that's just me playing down the road there. But in terms of shorter things, or shorter distance down the road, I should say, are the events that are coming up this weekend. We've got 12 events that we're aware of. This is a pretty packed full weekend here, as it seems like a lot of promotions are trying to get in their last shows of the week, or excuse me, of the year this weekend here. You got stuff happening in Georgia, North Carolina, here in South Carolina even. So let's go ahead and roll those posters, get you caught up on what's happening in this part of the world, and then we'll be back to finish up the program. folks, our rundown of the events that are happening in this part of the world. If you are a promoter, a wrestler, or in some way involved with a wrestling promotion and you didn't see your poster in that segment, it's because we didn't know about it. We do try and peruse social media to keep ourselves informed of what's happening in this part of the world, but we do miss things. That said, if you are involved with a wrestling promotion, would be very interested to have your material on the program here and on the Facebook page as well for Rasslin with Redbeard. Please submit it to us. You can shoot us a message here on YouTube, via email, Twitter, or Facebook. Be glad to get that out there for you, because a big part of what we do here on Rasslin with Redbeard is making people aware of the talent and promotions that are in this part of the world. Don't forget that this Wednesday, or actually today, is also the big day for the next NXT TakeOver event. It's going to be broadcast live from London, England. So get out there and enjoy that show and enjoy the matches this weekend. We'll be back next week with our final Rasslin with Redbeard midweek update of 2015 next Wednesday. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you down the road.